don't see that happening anytime soon with old Brucey boy there, but there you go. And it's like,
what was the deal with Bruce? He said he didn't see you as a star or something like that. What was that whole? Is that what he said?
Well, yeah, he said that he thought that I was playing the part of a wrestler and not really owning it, which was like.
Was he an Impact when you were an Impact?
For a short while, yeah. But he was. But see, this is the part that's up about that, in that like, so they reference it from. I guess they're talking about like some Impact show, and they reference it was when I worked with Alberto. Right, so I had actually left the company at that point. I just came back into, if you remember, because you were there, I came back into to work with Alberto, and because I was like, that was interesting to me, so I did it. Anyway, and Bruce basically says, oh, he doesn't have the it factor, he didn't have the it factor, Blah, blah. Well, look, if he'd have been talking about Magnus, the JoJo like character that from TNA, and like when I was in my like early to mid 20s, he'd have probably been right. But the reality, but it's like Conrad like then says, well, what about what he's been doing with the NWA and stuff? He's like, oh, he's just playing the part, like he's playing the role of a wrestler. He's not really. And I was just like, sorry, I got to speak on this.
You have like, the it factor.
Just the TNA stuff, I'd have been cool. But when he based, like, it was obvious that A, he hadn't actually watched any of it, and B, that like he was just trying to bury me. He was just trying to like he went out of his way to take food off my table and up my value in the market, and I don't take kindly to that.
I have no idea why you would make that statement, because you did lose a little bit of it when you did that "get my goat" thing, but
I had to. We had heat in TNA because my contract came up and he tried to offer me.
That's right. He was there. He had taken Terry Taylor's spot, right? As the what was that, talent guy? Talent relations. Oh, that's right.
Okay, I'll go get you one in a minute. Go downstairs. Sorry, guys.
It's all good.
It's all right.
That's a whole different thing. That the Game of Thrones that took place there, with like each one coming in and like stabbing the next one in the back and like taking his spot. Like, but that's another story. But no, he tried to. He basically in TNA. Anyone who hadn't worked for WWE, Bruce basically just like jobbed out and just treated like a jabroni. You know what I mean? Just was like
his spot is the hand of the king. It's always the hand of the king. He's right.
Yeah.
The one next, he's the one next to the owner. So
right. His main, his favorite catchphrase is "I was there." You were there. Anyway, so he offers. So I'm starting to get a little bit of a push ski, you know what I mean? And he's trying to offer me a contract, but he tries to offer me the same money for 3 years. Like it wasn't about the money itself. Like
that it didn't increase every year. Right?
For 3 years. So I immediately said, okay, so, and I was like 25 at the time, I think. So I said, so you're telling me that when I'm 28, you think I'm going to be worth the same amount of money that I'm worth now? So why the would I be here? Why would I stay if you think I'm not going to increase my value in 3 years? And he's like, well, this is a good offer, I think, blah, blah, blah. That's okay. Well, I did what anyone would do who, in that, so I went straight to Dixie. I just went, are you saying that if you think I'm going to be worth the same amount of money in 3 years from now that I am today, then there's no point in me being here. I may as well take my chances and try to get signed with WWE or go somewhere else. And she was like, wait, what are you talking about? Because this was always the problem there, is that like guys would just like go rogue and just, they wouldn't do what Dixie, they would just do stuff without running it by her. They all, like, everyone can say what they want about Dixie, but like so many guys who worked at TNA in management capacities were so unprofessional because they would just do whatever they wanted, and then when they got called out for it, they would blame Dixie. But half the time, Dixie didn't even know, because they just did it off their own back. They did stuff without, which is right. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, Dixie was a genius, she was great, obviously. But like, I just called her directly because I'd already worked for her for 3 years at that point. And I said, if you think I'm going to be worth the same amount of money in 3 years that I am today, then there's no point in me being here. And she just went like, I don't know, what are you talking about? And I said, well, Bruce just offered me this contract. It's the same money for 3 years. And she was just like, wait, whoa. So in pretty short order, Dixie's attorney, Guy Blake, took on my contract negotiations, just took it out of Bruce's hands. And Scott D'Amore was doing my contract, he was my agent at the time. So Bruce got completely removed from the equation. And Bruce calls me up and is like, oh, who do you think you are? Like, doing this and doing that. And then he goes, running to mommy like a little, and I was just like, are you saying that because the president of the company is a woman, and that because I went to the president of the company that's running to mommy? Like, I don't think that plays very well in 2020. I don't know about you guys, but like those were his exact words. And I was like, this is the same guy who on his podcast would be like, the top guys would go straight to Vince. And that's what the top guys should do. They should go straight to Vince, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I went straight to Dixie, but suddenly, it's running to mommy, right? And I was just like, this guy. So they took my whole contract negotiation got completely taken out of his hands, so much so that even when we were like down to the wire and like finalizing it, he tried to come and sort of join the conversation again. And like Dixie was like, it's fine, Bruce, like you can go. Like, and he's of course he's going to hold a grudge for that forever because like,
well, they're vindictive people at the top. They're vindictive people. I mean, it's just the patterns. It's never changed. It's all comes from the old, the old school territory philosophy and stuff. And just, it's just, and it's been a detriment to the business. It's counterproductive to forwarding this business to the next place as people have been like shut down.
You'll know it's always the people that never wrestle. That have that thing where they're just very insecure. And they live on this sort of currency of like fear. They love to sort of dangle like the boys, fear of losing their job, and that's their sort of, I don't know if you guys watched the Bulls documentary, The Last Dance.
Oh, for sure, we watch every episode.
Jerry Krause.
Yeah.
That's exactly who he is. Like he's this like little Napoleon, like gets off on sort of like I'm the one responsible for all this stuff. It's not about the players. It's about me. I did all this, and it's like I can honestly say this, and I knew I had a feeling that this would come up, but it's like I've tried not to sort of really hammer that on this because I'm just like he said his I said my move on, but it's like I just want to say for the record with when it comes to all this with Bruce, you go back and look. I never started any of it. Like he always, you know what I mean. I've never gone out of my way to be like. I never did all these things where I, talk about Bruce or anything. Like I've always just done it in response to he, like for no reason, just decided he was gonna marry me. I don't know why. Maybe my name came up in a conversation as like, hey, maybe we should take a look at this guy. And
bro, let me tell you something, Nick.
And he went, that I'm gonna bury him. Well, that's and in reverse of that is it's like Bruce could have on me anytime he wanted when he wasn't working for WWE. He's had his podcast the whole time, but he didn't because he needed to get booked places and he needed to do his appearances and whatnot. But now he's back firmly pressed up against the bosom of Vince. It's like now he's let me on this guy and let me take out all these all these axes I have to grind. Like it's just a sad way to live your life, man. I feel sorry for him.
Yeah.